Hey folks, so it's been a while since I posted anything. I've been busy with a lot of other things going on right now, but I've decided for my own sanity that I need to sit down and throw a little bit. And I thought what I was going to do is I'm going to try something, an idea that I had for something really old. Like Middle Ages sort of old, and it's a charcoal brazier, and an alembic. So I'm going to show you the sketches that I came up with it, came up for with it, and I don't know if these are going to show up or not. Yep, they will. Okay, so that's going to be the brazier, and it's just for burning lump charcoal, and it's used to heat up the alembic. And an alembic was used during the Middle Ages for producing herbal distillations, like almost like the essential oils that we get today, same sort of thing. And so what happens is you put your herbs into that pot and set it over the brazier, and you fill it with water. And then what you do is you place this cone-shaped dealy bobber. Let's see if I can get that in there. On top of that, and it heats the water and it evaporates the water. And when it evaporates the water, it carries the essence from the herbs up into that cone. Carries the essence of those herbs up into that cone, and they condense on the inside of the cone because you place cool, wet towels on there, and it travels down out through that spout, and you collect it below. Inevitably, somebody is going to ask me if you can use this to distill other things. So here's my legal disclaimer. This is designed only to be used, first of all, outside, because you're burning charcoal, and it will be bad for you if you burn it inside. It will probably kill you. Second of all, it is designed to be used to distill herbal essences. Any other use, at least in the United States and probably other countries as well, is illegal. You will go to jail for a long time. Also, you may very well kill yourself. So that's my legal disclaimer. I'm showing you this as an educational sort of thing. Any use that you come up with for it after that, on your head be it. All right, so basically this is going to be thrown in 4 parts. Well, no, 5 parts. It's going to be thrown 2 parts for the brazier, which is what I'm getting ready to do now. It's going to be basically a big, thick bowl with some, what do you call it? With some pot rests on it to keep it up, to keep the bowl up off the charcoal, and to provide air in there, and a base which is going to raise the brazier up from whatever surface you have it sitting on, so that you're not setting your deck, your porch, your outdoor table, your whatever on fire. Okay? So we're going to start with the bowl. And I've been able to find no references anywhere about this. So I'm having to guess on pretty much everything, and we'll see how it works out. I know I want to throw the walls of this bowl relatively thick. So I've got 3 pounds of clay here. All right, we'll start out with that. Oh, that's for sure. Cone up. And we're going to center down. Then what we're going to do is we're going to open it up, and there are, if you ask 100 different potters how they open their clay when they first start, you're going to get 104 different ways that they do it. The way I do it is I take my thumbs, and I put them together and lock them, and I find the exact center of the clay, and I just push down from in there, like that. And then when I get the bottom set at the depth that I want, what I do is I've got them like this, and I've got my hands on the clay, and I just start using my knuckles as a lever. I just start pushing out with my thumbs. All right, from there we've got our bowl shape. I'm just going to collar it in a little bit. So what we've got is sort of a cone shape. And from there we're going to pull a cylinder up. So I take my fingers here at the base, and I get a measure of clay, and I pull up. Same thing again. Fingers in at the base. And pull up. Things to watch out for when you're doing this. You want to make sure that you're not pulling too quickly. If you start pulling too quickly, you're going to end up with uneven spots or uneven thicknesses in your wall. And that's just going to throw the whole piece off of balance, and then you're going to have problems later. Other things to look out for is be especially careful of this, your rim. You want to make sure that you don't get your rim too thin to start out with. that are, all right, reasons for that are, the biggest reason for that is that, if you remember, this is going to be a bowl shape. So we're going to be pushing the walls out here in a second. And if your rim is too thin, when you start doing that, it's going to get even thinner. So you want to make sure you have extra clay in your rim when you start pulling it out to the bowl shape, so that your rim doesn't get too thin. Because remember, it's going to be supporting a pot with water on it. Just kind of setting the inside shape right now. All right. Now there are many, many ways to do this. Some potters use a rib and pull it and use the rib to pull it out. Some potters actually throw it out into a bowl shape. Find a way that works best for you. The method that I prefer to use is I just take my whole hand, and you need to make sure your hands are very wet for this. Wetter than you normally would think. Because as this clay thins out, it starts feeling dry. And when you start getting dry spots, you start getting trouble. Alright, so what I do is take my hand, my whole hand, and right across the ball of your hand, right there where your knuckles are, I put that against the rim, and I just start pulling my hand down. And I'm using my left hand to support it while I do this. Alright, probably will be okay. Alright. Alright. Now from that point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a little bit more clay, and at the same time I'm going to refine my bowl shape on the inside. And as you can see, while I do that, the clay kind of sits down. All right. Like I said before, that's just one method. There are many, many methods out there. And like everything else, I'd say I would recommend finding a way that works for you, that you're comfortable with. Because I can tell you how to do it, and I can be one of those potters that says this is the only way to do it, and no other way works. Well, no other way works for those potters, but if you're not comfortable with it, you're not going to do it. It's as simple as that. All right. So, like I said, as you can see, hopefully you can see, our wall thickness is about, I'd say, ½ inch. And that's good. Remember, you're going to have burning charcoal in here, so you don't want it too thin, otherwise you will get thermal shock. All right, I'm going to take my leather, and I'm just going to define this rim a little bit. What that does is it compresses the rim and kind of just compacts all of the clay particles on the rim. And that just makes it a little bit stronger. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so that the rim kind of curves back into the bowl. And this is just going to help concentrate where the heat from the charcoal goes. It's also going to make sure that if you get some bad charcoal and it's poppy, it's not popping charcoal embers all over the place. All right. Okay. And take my throwing stick down here at the bottom. Just make a little bevel. And that bevel's not super important on this bowl because it is going to get trimmed. It's going to have to get trimmed. But if it wasn't going to be trimmed, it would help when I thumb it off. The other thing that bevel does is it's going to give me a place to put my cutting wire in a second. All right. So take my cutting wire, and something happened to my other wire, so I'm actually using an actual cutting wire for this. Normally I have a piece of fishing line between two little pieces of dowel, and it's a lot shorter, so I don't have to wrap it around my fingers. Wrapping it around your fingers is fine, but if you get a piece of really stiff clay, you can actually cut into your fingers. I've seen people cut it down to the bone. It's not pleasant. All right, so cut through, dry hands, take my hands underneath, and just lift straight off. All right, the thicker your piece is, the less deformity you'll get when you lift it like that. So, check real quick, make sure we're still filming. All right. So for the second piece of this bowl, what we're going to do is we're going to throw the base. And the base is basically going to be just like a goblet or a chalice base would be. Okay, so we get our clay down on the wheel. And I don't know if you noticed, but there was that pad of clay left when I cut off the other piece that I didn't even bother to get rid of. There's no reason to. It's not going to affect anything. It actually will help the clay seal to the wheel head when you start this, so it's not scooting off the wheel head. All right, so same thing. Cone up, center down. All right. And I don't know if I said it or not, the weight on this piece is about a pound. So remember, this is the piece that covers or that supports the weight of everything. All right, so you want to make sure that this is sturdy. All right. So a little bit different on this one. What I'm going to do when I open it is, instead of stopping and leaving a base or leaving a floor on this, I'm going to open it all the way down to the wheel head. So I'm going to put my thumbs in there and get down there until I feel the wheel head. All right. Water. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and open from there, just like we normally would. All right. So, when you're doing this part of it, you want to make sure that you get a good wide base so that your piece is stable. If you have a narrow base, it's not gonna be really stable. And if you when you're using this outside, you will and you get a good gust of wind, you can knock the whole thing over, and then that's just bad news. And so make sure you got a nice wide base to use. All right, ideally the base should be slightly larger than the base of the bowl that it's going to sit on. The reason for that is because then we can go back in from that point. All right, so we have that. Now we're just going to pull up like we normally would. Luck out this time. You get it mostly in one pull. It doesn't often happen. Then again, we don't need a whole lot of height on this one either. We just want enough height so that it's keeping it up off of whatever surface it's sitting on. All right. I'm going to collar this middle portion in a little bit. Not too much. Okay. And then, the rim, we're going to come back out a little bit. Not to the full width of this base. And then we're going to flatten the rim out just slightly. The reason for that is it's just going to give us a wider surface when we attach it to the bowl. All right, so this is the same clay that I've been using, the clay that I harvest, and I know from past experience it has some pretty good resistance to being used for having charcoal in it. I haven't tried it for any extended period, but I have done it, and it's okay. What I wouldn't recommend is using your really expensive store-bought stoneware clay for this. Stoneware clay is designed, well, first of all, you're kind of wasting it because you're not going to fire it to stoneware temperatures. I wouldn't fire it to stoneware temperatures. What happens at stoneware is the clay gets really dense. and then it doesn't have as much resistance to thermal expansion and contraction and stuff like that. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to fire this. I normally bisque to 900 Celsius. In this case, I'm just going to bisque to 1050 Celsius, which is right around cone. It's about cone 05. Or in my kiln, it's about cone 05. And we're going to call it done. So this piece isn't going to be glazed. So got everything set. Take my my throwing stick. Give me a little bit of a bevel down there, just so that I have something to put somewhere to put the cutting wire. And cut it off. Now, on this one, we're going to lift it off towards the middle. And instead of doing the fork thing, I'm going to cup it. All right, and there we go. The reason I cup it instead of doing the fork thing and I go in the middle is because there's no base to support it. And if I just tried to do that at the bottom, it would just collapse the bottom, and then we wouldn't have a round bottom. All right, so that's the first part of it. I will be back here shortly with the rest of it. I have to get some more clay wedged up, so check back with me, and we'll continue on from there.